Yeah, 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 yeah.
Don't just make your fucking beats.
I'm about my game. Live by the rules, we don't play the same. That's on my grave, that's on my name. I'm saying, I'm about my paper, about my game. I'm about my game.
What is up, everybody? This is Thomas Christopher of the League Winners, and this is another episode of College Football Now. If you're listening to this show, make sure you are liking the channel. If you're on YouTube, liking goes a long way. If you're there, subscribe to the channel. It's completely free to do. Also helps us out if you're watching it on Facebook or Twitter. Make sure you're liking or potentially hitting that retweet button. We've got a great show today. We have our first guest lined up, and we're actually going to talk some Florida Atlantic football. He does some written work for New Era Prep on the college side, Sports Illustrated for the New York Giants, and he also does Inside the Burrow with the FAU Owls nest. I'd like to bring him on stage right now. Robbie, Lastella. Robbie, did I get all that correct for you?
Yeah, you got it all in there, as always. Great job, Tommy. How's it going?
I'm doing great, man. How about you?
Happy to be home. The trip to Tampa, honestly, is not that bad. I enjoy it more than going, I guess, to UCF or even UF. So it's a nice little trek over there, and I enjoy the Pro Stadium, even though the press box food gets a 0.5. They get a 1 because they had coffee, but other than that, no points.
Yeah, I've heard some interesting things. I'm curious to see if I end up going down there myself, how that is, or if that changes a little bit. I know I'm going to talk to Mackenzie for that USF side of things while Brandon's at FIU, but I want to talk to you for the Florida Atlantic side, going back into this past week at USF. The Owls ended up playing close for, I'd say, the first half a little bit more, and then the bottom fell out kind of in a similar fashion to the Memphis game. Can you just give me your thoughts on what you saw in that matchup because you were there live?
Yeah, early on in that game, first half, before probably that last drive, I was not too intrigued with what I was seeing. And then they score. They hit that field goal right there before the half. They come out with some momentum in the second half. They score a touchdown, and all of a sudden they're down one possession after surrendering multiple penalties left and right in the first half, giving USF extra opportunities, not capitalizing in their own right, missing field goals, not getting anything offensively. But they still found themselves with momentum going into the locker room. Not many times they've had that this year. And they come out of the locker room scoring that touchdown. Theoretically, FAU should have been able to stay in this game. Who knows what could have happened, but they didn't. The offense fell asleep. They had nothing going. And I think a big part of that was no run game to help Veltkamp. They tried to do different things left and right, whether it was, short dink and dunk passes or, they tried to get that run game going, but there was nothing going, whether it was Shield Dutton or Jamari Sands. And, when they just got backed up a lot, first down, they would, if you go look at the game book, any drive they had to punt, they were going, it was 3 plays, -2 yards, 3 plays, right, no yards. Like, they're not doing anything in these drives. And USF, you can't have those nothing drives. Eventually, USF was able to put together enough offensive drives in their own right. I mean, FAU, not only they scored a touchdown, they got to stop. They had the ball with a chance to tie the game in the second half, and then they lose 48-13. There's a couple things that concern me. Obviously, there's no answer in that running back room unless, Xavier Terrell comes back, unless Jamari Sands heals up here. Those are your only options. It's a small room. We saw Ethan Irvin get his first real contribution of the season against USF there, but there's nothing going on there. USF was really found a way to take away the explosive side of the FAU offense. First team to limit FAU with no passes 20 yards or longer through the air. So the offense really got clipped, and I didn't, for them to have 2 games now, with the Memphis game and this one, where they really had no answers once they got down multiple scores in the second half. That's a little bit concerning, but there's still a chance for them to really finish this season in a strong way. They just have to wipe that game to the side. USF, in my opinion, is really talented compared to what I saw 2 years ago. So that's a game that FAU, they just got outmatched, Kitley's had 2 situations here in his early part of his FAU career where he's had big offensive struggles that he's never experienced. 6 interceptions and less than 1 yard per carry. Not good. You don't want to hire an offensive guy and have, big struggles like that. But I will say, at least those struggles are coming against Maryland, Big Ten, and USF, arguably the best team in the American Conference, best team in the G5. So those are things that you have to try to work on. And obviously we haven't seen an interception barrage like that since then. I think Kitley and the staff will work to try to get that run game going, but I just don't know if the answers are going to be there unless Jamari and Xavier can get healthy. So it got really ugly there. And I think what I want to see in these games down the stretch is there's going to be times where FAU finds themselves down. They can't just roll over and die. They have to find ways to stay alive in these games because anything can happen if you stay in it. But if you go down 3 scores, you have no chance.
No, I completely agree on that. And it's very interesting because FAU had opportunities, right? Like the return from Easton Messer that ends up getting called back and he does the horns down just to have his teammate wipe out the play on him. It's things of that nature, like that the lack of discipline, I guess I'll say, that we've seen from a Coach Kitley team. Do you think that discipline or the lack thereof is like a major factor as to why this team is outside of some potential talent stuff, like talent discrepancies, do you think discipline is probably that next factor of, okay, the team is struggling, this is potentially why?
Maybe, because a lot of these penalties are backbreaking. It's not like, it's not like they're having a false start on the first play of the game and then they're, still marching down. And these penalties are coming. It's 4th and 1. You need a yard to get a first down. And then all of a sudden it's 4th and 6. That happened twice in a span of, I think it was the same set of downs. They went 1st to 4th down, 4th and 1 to 4th and 6. 1st to 4th. I did that. That was ridiculous. And things like that. The blindside block penalty on the punt return, if you look at it, it's really close. But I've said this now on multiple podcasts. When you are a team that commits an egregious amount of penalties, refs are going to overanalyze the game. They know a team that is committing a lot of penalties. And sure, maybe FAU is not out here committing blindside blocks every game, but when they're committing, they've had 3 games now where they've had 70 plus yards of penalties. I think it's 2 with 10 plus. When you have those types of numbers, refs know that, and they're watching every play. And when you brush up against a guy from a angle that might be blindside E, they're probably going to call it, and you can't really do much about it. And so, I don't know necessarily if it's not like the team is committing physically negating penalties. Obviously these penalties are backbreaking, but they're not, late hitting the quarterback. They're not having dangerous horse collar tackles. So they're not really, it's not like it's, they're not doing anything egregious, but they got to clean these things up. They did that well against UAB and Rice. But for the penalties to return, though, that's exactly what I said going into this game. I thought FAU could have a chance to give USF a game in this one, but if they go back and revert to those struggles they had against FIU, where they're committing penalties left and right on big plays, you're going to lose. You're going to lose those games. You can't give teams extra chances. And so, what I'm interested to see is if changes are made in personnel. I'm not calling anyone out, but at the end of the day, if people keep committing the same penalties, I'm interested to see if eventually Coach Kitley and the staff decide to make some moves somewhere, whether that's in the DB group, offensive line, defensive line, whatever they got to do to try to get rid of those penalties and get a spark as well. So I'm not too overly concerned with the penalties yet, but they've definitely been a negative thing. And that's a first year type of thing. Hopefully you can weed out. USF, I believe, had similar problems in year 1 of Golesh. I have to go back and look. I remember that game against FAU, they did have a decent amount of penalties, if I remember correctly, back in 2023. And look at them now. I don't believe penalties are an issue at all. So those are things that can be fixed, but you can't lose games consistently because of them, because then you won't have the opportunity to fix them, because eventually you'll find yourself like Billy Napier or another fire coach. So they got to get this ship righted quickly. And they still have a chance to do that and make a bowl game in year 1, which I don't think this time last year FAU was talking about a bowl game, and it's still early. They got some tough games coming up. No guarantees at all. But there's still hope as long as you can get to 6 wins, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the FIU game, it kind of got fans a little out of Kitley because of how dominant, Florida Atlantic has been in that rivalry. Now, there was something else that happened during like the USF game that also might have taken a hit with fans, and that is losing a commit and Stroud, and then his friend Parks ends up decommitting. I believe it was on Monday, if I'm not mistaken. Were you surprised about those two decommitments, considering where they were on the defense, aside that has needed some help? And what did you feel his message today in his press conference where he says, he wants guys that want to be here? Do you think that's more just a general statement or kind of foreshadowing to what happened between those two?
I don't know. Who knows? I mean, maybe there was a little dig there. I mean, who knows? That's the thing with high school recruits. First of all, the staff is never going to comment on it directly. So if there was a shot, we'll never know. But that's the thing with high school recruits until it gets like really, really close to the time, until they sign on the dotted line and they're here. Who knows? Anything can happen. I mean, FAU had a guy, Frederick Saintius, who they had signed. I did an interview with him over the phone, and next thing you know, he's decommitted, and now he's at Miami. So, I mean, anything can happen. I'm not surprised whatever happened, they left together. They're a tight duo. Whoever gets them is going to get a talented pair of DBs. But that's the thing with high school. Anything can happen at any point in time. And, it's definitely interesting timing of it all there with the game and getting blown out and them doing it at that point in time and Tampa Bay Tech. But you know what? That's the thing. That's like I'm saying. It's, high schoolers can't really go too deep into that. So it's not overly concerning. The high school class is a little bit slim, but recruiting right now in my mind is a back burner, especially high school recruiting with how portal reliant you can be, especially right now with FAU trying to get to where they're at. I hope the staff isn't overly concerned with high schoolers decommitting and then potentially trying to take a shot in the presser or and from the high schooler side of it, Park side of it on social media mid-game. I hope there's no back and forth. It is what it is. Best of luck to those guys, and I'm sure FAU will be able to fill those spots either with high schoolers or transfer portal guys.
Yeah, with the way the portal's working now, I mean, we even saw with this current team for Florida Atlantic now, where there's a lot of transfer players coming in and kind of taking over where some undergrads or some underclassmen rather are kind of seeing the back end of that and sending the back end. Now, I think that's a good segue. Seeing what's next is honestly, there's a big matchup this week. They take on the Navy Midshipmen, who, I mean, Blake Horvath should probably be getting more talks as a Heisman candidate, considering how well he's playing. Interesting comment from Brian Newberry, head coach of Navy. When I talked to him at their presser, he did suggest that he is going to try to force as much run stopping potential from his defense as possible. It's kind of been the formula to getting Florida Atlantic to have their struggles, but also it's an issue within the line in and of itself. What do you think for the Florida Atlantics, and how do you get that run game going in attempts to make an upset happen at Navy?
Man, I wish I had the answers on how to spark that run game. They'd be paying me some good money. Now, I think it would start, I don't know how close Alex Akovich is to coming back. He's out potentially for this game and longer. That's a guy who's kind of an anchor over there, and so, that's a missing piece on that side. But we saw them be able to adjust without him against UAB. So, I know Navy's got a strong interior of their line. I think I want to see them try to do a little bit of east-west, get things going on the outside, because we saw them run a lot inside against USF. And, the USF interior D-line had no problems getting to the running back before they got to the line of scrimmage. So I want to see FAU to try to get to the edge somehow, maybe get those wide receivers involved somehow, some way. Big plays in the run game, get a big play on the outside. Then all of a sudden the defense is gassed a little bit, and then you can go and then you try to attack up the middle. So they lacked explosive plays. I don't believe they had a rush of 10 yards or longer on the ground against USF. They need to have, I'm not saying every run needs to go for 20 yards, but they need to get, something going. They need to get a little messer, something on the outside, not a screen pass, but something in the run game where, they can spark it, and then the defense is all hyper-focused on the outside run. They can go inside. So Got to find different ways to scheme things up. The thing is, though, Caden Shields-Dutton is not really an east-west runner. He's going to be a physical downhill type of guy. Xavier Terrell is probably your best bet, but I don't know how long he's going to be either as well. A lot of these injuries we won't know really until the two hours before the game. So yeah. We're going to need to keep an eye on that running back room. The health is the biggest thing. The health all around. If they go into this game with no Terrell, Sands, Jamari Sands still dealing with an ankle, and Caden Shields-Dutton and Ethan Irvin being your really only healthy options, I don't really know if they'll be able to spark the run. They'll do the best they can. They got to get at least 3 yards of carry, in my opinion. Whatever they do, if they're not able to turn big plays and get 3 yards of carry, 2nd and 7 instead of 2nd and 10. I like their odds a little bit because then they can go with a screen pass and set up 3rd and manageables. In my opinion, that first drive, that scripted drive for FAU, they were doing well. Veldkamp, I think it was like 9-9 for like 39 yards or something. And until Golesh called that timeout, which was a really good play, a really good coaching move by him to call that timeout. His defense was railing, calls timeout, and then he immediately gets a sack. On first down, FAU's almost in the red zone. Then they sacked Veldkamp. They never recover.
Right.
So got to find ways to generate those short yardage passes later in the game. So I don't know how they'll be able to spark the run, but if they're not healthy, I don't think this game will be the game. They got to get healthy before they can worry about sparking the run. Even though Coach Kitley still wants to try to find a way to get that run game going, I don't think Navy, this game is going to be the opportunity to do that unless they're healthy.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, I do like the idea of going east-west instead of north-south, kind of making, the Army, the Navies of the world, the academy schools, they're not necessarily the best athletes per se from like a speed standpoint. They're more technically sound. So I think trying to take advantage of some of the players you do have where they could potentially be faster and more agile, I think that's better than trying to come right at them, right in the middle where they can, fill their gaps responsibly, which Navy really does do. The other half of that too is I'm very interested to see how FAU's defense can try to stop Blake Horvath, because Blake has been, as we ended up saying, we got a comment there, Alex Golesh to Auburn. Who knows?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe he's going to go to Florida. If you ask the USF people, they're going to burn this podcast to the ground if we even talk about him leaving. Anything's possible. I don't know where he's going.
Yeah, I'm actually going to ask Mackenzie when she ends up coming in and see how she feels about that comment. That's Jack. Don't do it on YouTube. Appreciate the comment, Jack. Now, the other side, I was talking about Blake Horvath. He's been a machine. I mean, I think he's 19th right now in college football in rushing yards. He's also throwing the ball too, much more than Bryson Daly ended up doing for Army last year. So he's really, really become a dual threat right out of the gates for Navy and en route to their currently undefeated season. How do you think FAU can stop him? Because they did have. I know Rice runs I don't want to say similar. It's not a 1-to-1 thing, but they do run an option-based kind of offense. How do you think that Florida Atlantic's defense can try to limit or stop Horvath's success?
I think Rice showed me they're capable of at least putting together a game plan to attempt to slow things down here. I don't know if they're going to be able to stymie Navy's offense. I don't think anybody has been able to stymie Navy's offense this year. But what Rice showed me is they're going to throw things at them to at least try to slow them down. Outside of that first drive for Rice, they were really able to kind of limit things. But like you mentioned, though, this is going to be different, right? My concern against Rice was that Jenkins was going to be able to drop back and catch him slipping. He never really did that through the air. He did a couple times, but he never was really able to connect. I don't think Horvath is going to miss his target if he has a wide open tight end down the middle. If that happens, he's going to score, and that's going to be a dagger or something along those lines. So again, my original concerns with Rice are now back with this game. Is the defense going to cue in on the run so much that all of a sudden Horvath is dropping back and throwing for? He torched Air Force through the air, I believe. I forgot his stat line, but I believe that game he was airing it out. So it's definitely in his repertoire, and as well on the ground. They're going to scheme things up and get his legs going. And obviously, FIU, USF, and Memphis are totally different offenses, but nevertheless, they were able to successfully scheme things up to get things going with their quarterback. And you best believe Navy's going to do it with Horvath in a completely different offense. So I'm interested to see how they're able to do it as well. I think the success of the edge rushers in recent weeks up until USF in a pass rushing sense has been intriguing. Wilkie Denard, Eric Brantley, they've been playing well up until that USF game where they were kind of really silenced. Those guys are going to have to be athletic. They're going to have to prevent, things from popping outside. And if they can do what they've been doing in recent weeks in kind of the run defense department, I think that'll help. They need strong will from those guys on the edge, but the interior as well. Doggett, Najon Barber, those guys are going to have to play really, really physical. I think the key is you can't. What helped against Rice is FAU was pretty even in time of possession, and they got to find ways to generate consistent drives of their own offensively, and find a way to get Rice or find a way to get Navy off the field. If they can get Navy off the field and then not let them dominate the time of possession, anything's possible. But if Navy gets their offense in rhythm and dominates the time of possession, then things will happen, unfortunately, for FAU.
Yeah, I think time of possession is incredibly important in this game, and that's something else I just want to kind of quickly talk to you about too. Is the speed at which FAU's offense is playing is pretty insane to think about, considering that sometimes they've had great success with it, and then other times they've been kind of stymied with it. Now, Caden Velkamp is one of, I think, let me check here quick. He's one of 6 passers to actually have 2,000 passing yards this season, but of the top 15 passers in college football right now, man, he's only got 14 touchdowns. That's the 3rd lowest. Caden Hauser is at 10, the lowest, but they don't necessarily need to do that at ECU. And then you have Athan Kalikamakis, which Rutgers is another team that I wouldn't necessarily think has a great passing attack, not yet anyway. But for Velkamp, are the 14 touchdowns kind of surprising to you, considering it is an air raid offense? Kitley, ideally, at the end of the day, wants to throw the ball in bunches, and the pace of the offense suggests as much as well. Are you just surprised it hasn't been connecting? And what can Florida Atlantic do to kind of get more points on the board?
It's been interesting because we've heard Kitley talk a lot about the ground game, and we've seen them have big games on the ground. I think it was Caden Shields-Dutton had 3 touchdowns against UAB. They've found ways to get in the end zone. I'm not too keyed in on the passing touchdown side of things. Obviously, we want them to score whatever the way it is. I've just been glad. I think their red zone offense has been relatively solid, whether that's passing or getting the running backs involved. I think the biggest thing is finding a way to use all the weapons they have at wide receiver. We saw this was a different type of issue last year with Tom Herman. He believed that all of the wide receivers in the room should play, and they didn't need to do that. This year, arguably all the wide receivers are talented enough to play, and there's almost not enough snaps to get them involved. I think finding ways for a couple, we saw this early in the game last week. Brandon Hoke was on the field early in that game. Jabari Smith Jr. had a 39-yard touchdown against UAB, and other than that, he's been relatively quiet this year. There's a bunch of guys who don't play a ton that you can throw in there for a gadget type of play that the defense doesn't really know what his game is unless they're really queuing up on that film. And, those are the type of plays where you kind of gain a little edge. Got to connect on your trick plays. We've seen them have a flea flicker or two this year that they haven't been able to connect. So when they get those big play opportunities, got to find a way to connect on them. They can't have penalties that bust down your big plays. Punt returns, holdings, none of that can happen. Just execute. They need more execution. Can't get behind the sticks as well. I think that's the biggest thing, actually, with this offense. Whatever they do, they can't get to second and longer than 7. Can't be second and 8, 9, 10 plus. Has to be second and 7 short because they struggle to recover once they get into long yardage situations. So got to find ways to stay ahead of the sticks. And if they can do that against Navy, that'll definitely help the offense with the lack of run game, especially.
Yeah, that'll be very important. I am kind of surprised that Kitley isn't using some of the young receivers that he has, considering the rotation is, not putting enough Messer and Asad Wasim together on top of the other players and kind of just forcing. It's a little weird, in my opinion. I think there's a lot more missed opportunities there. Would you mention Brandon Ock, and the Jade Card is another guy who potentially could, add something. Jabari Smith, who you talked about last year, who really stepped up for the team last year. He did a good job, and I'm surprised he hasn't gotten as much rub as well. So just before I let you go, how do you think this, at the end of the day, how do you think this Navy and Florida Atlantic game plays out?
Yeah, I've seen FAU this year bounce back. In years past, they've kind of struggled early in the season and never really had that bounce back game and eventually just limped into a finish. After they got smacked in the mouth against FIU, smacked in the mouth against Memphis, it could have been real easy for this team to be 1-6, 1-5 right now, whatever it is. They didn't. They bounced back, and whatever you want to say about Rice and UAB, those are American Conference teams. We saw what UAB did last week to Memphis, and Rice has been pesky with teams as well. So they won those games, and those are conference games. You got to give them credit for that. And so they've bounced back before. They got punched in the mouth again against a rival, against an in-state opponent, recruiting battles. Whatever pissed you off about that game doesn't matter anymore. You got to push it aside. And I think we've seen them do it again. We've seen them do it this year, and I think there's a chance for them to do it again. Things are a little different. That run game not being 100% is definitely hurt the offense, but they've made adjustments as well this year outside of just bouncing back. We've seen them. They've had points. The run defense was horrendous. They've bounced back in certain games. At times they had no pass rush. They've definitely improved that up until last week. Penalties were a problem early in the year. They took a break. Now they're back. I think there's a chance for them to bounce back in this game, and we'll see if they can do it. I think there's definitely a chance. I don't make predictions. I'm not Nostradamus. I say that on Inside the Burrow. But what I will say is don't be surprised if FAU comes out inspired. The big thing for me, though, in this game is penalties can't happen against Navy. If you're committing penalties left and right, probably going to lose the game. And then on the offensive side of the ball, if you start behind the chains, more drives than not, probably going to lose the game. And if you commit turnovers, also probably going to lose the game. So can't hurt yourself. That's going to be the biggest thing. If they don't hurt themselves, if they play a clean game and they find a way to make a play defensively, force a fumble, get a stop on a 3rd and 3 rush play, get into the backfield and stuff it, force a punt. Things that in past weeks, what 3rd and 3 would have been a gain of 7 and a first down. They keep the drive going. Change the narrative. Find a way to make plays that you hadn't in past weeks, and don't make the same mistakes you made in past weeks. Anything can happen. It's intriguing that they've definitely found a way to bounce back in other games. So I'm not counting them out of it. It's going to be a test of willpower. If they win this game, that's a really intriguing sign, because this is a game I can tell you for a fact. Last year, Willie Taggart regime, anything outside of the past 2 coaches, they would have lost this next game. So this is a chance for Kitley to really show that they're here and they're competing and trying to build something.
Yeah, that's the one thing that has been nice to see. They have been inspired after, their previous butt kickings. It's something that we saw last year with Tom Herman that was not the case. They kind of dug I don't want to make this pun joke because it's the Owls, but they kind of dug their own little hole and kind of just nestled right in there. Yeah, they burrowed themselves, man. And that was, that's not what you want to see out of them. Kitley, I do think Kitley at the end of the day, it's the ups and downs of a year one coach. And right now he's already at the mark, win mark of his predecessor. He can only really go up from there. Anything less than that, and then it'll be kind of damning on him, which personally, I do not hope happens. I think Kitley's a good guy. But before I let you out of here, Robbie, just let everybody know where they can find you at, your social media, what work you're doing, and what's up next for you.
Yeah, you can give me a follow on X, Lastella Report. I'm doing some college basketball stuff later this year, and and as well as the FAU football, basketball, and some New York Giants content as well on SI. I'm keeping myself busy. If you like anything related to the New York Giants, the FAU Owls, or college basketball as a whole, I'll have something for you, even if it's just a tweet. So give me a follow, Lastella Report. Tommy, as always, thanks for having me on.
I appreciate you, Robbie. You take care, brother.
You too.
That is Robbie Lastella. You can find him running at New Era Prep, but you can also find him on X/Twitter at R, the letter R, Lastella, Lastella Report. And that is on X/Twitter. He covers the Florida Atlantic Owls. He also writes for Sports Illustrated for the New York Giants, and he does some basketball stuff as well. Now, my next guest is waiting right now in the green room. She covers the USF Bulls for the league winners. We all know her. We all love her. It is Mackenzie Neglia. Mackenzie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. And for anybody listening right now, if you're listening, please make sure to like the show. Subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Feel free to leave a comment. This is a live show. We will get back to you. And I do have a comment I do want to show Mackenzie right after this a little bit. And if you're watching it on Facebook or on X/Twitter, make sure you're liking, retweeting, and you can even comment there as well. And we will get to it. Now, Mackenzie, while I was talking with Robbie, we did briefly highlight the USF and Florida Atlantic game. I do want to talk to you about that a little bit too. But we did have an interesting comment from somebody on YouTube suggesting that Alex Golesh is going to go to Auburn. So I just wanted to ask you, do you think there's a chance that Alex Golesh could potentially leave USF?
I think that, someone asked him about this during one of the pressers, and he basically said that, he's really happy here. He has no intention of leaving right now. But I think that with with the landscape of the coaches right now, it's been something that has been talked about widely. But with what he said, I think that should give USF fans a little bit of comfort. I think ideally he wouldn't leave in the middle of the season. But also, the USF fans are going to hate me for this, but it's possible. I think ideally they would want to keep him, or try to keep him until the stadium opens.
Right.
Try to keep him on this run as he's kind of growing the program right now for the next couple seasons or so. Is that realistic with this? I don't really know. But I think he's safe with USF for right now.
I don't think you're necessarily wrong either, because it's one thing if it's just like one job that's opened up, that's kind of, a prestigious job. It's another thing when you have like multiple P4 jobs opening up with, people, and his name is being thrown in on a short list for a lot of these openings. And we're all seeing what he's doing right now with South Florida. He beat 2 ranked teams. Now I know Florida has kind of, not been great this year, but Boise State has looked really good ever since that loss to USF. So it makes that win look a lot better. They just beat an undefeated UNLV team. So it's not like USF is playing poorly. And at the head of that is Alex Golesh, who kind of brought this program up. I mean, you saw the struggles from 2 years ago. We talked about it last show, where he ended up losing to Tom Herman in Florida Atlantic as we were going into that game. This year was a lot, last year was a lot different. We saw the non-handshake issue. And then this year was just a pretty much one-sided beatdown after the second half. So I don't think you're wrong. I mean, hopefully they don't hate you for saying that, but I don't necessarily think you're wrong, because USF's a great spot and hopefully it works out. It's interesting now that they do have that general manager, and potentially there could be, with realignment, USF may be at a new P4 school at the end of the day. But I don't necessarily think you're wrong. But you were actually at a presser today, if I'm not mistaken, as well, with Coach Golish. Could you just talk about how that went and what was his message?
Yeah, I mean, two kind of main things that stood out to me, and they're more, I guess, kind of philosophical rather than like technical football.
Yeah.
But Coach Golish was pretty much starting out talking about, it's late October, you're playing really meaningful football. You've gone through a lot, but you still have a lot more to go. And, these guys are banged up, they're hurting, they're tired. But nobody really cares, like their job is to go to work every day, put their best out there on the field. And then also kind of this like be here now kind of movement where like it's so easy to get caught up in the playoff projections and the bowl games and the AP poll and the conference rankings and all that stuff. But these guys also, they have family, they have friends, they go to class, they're away from home, they have girlfriends, some of them are married with kids, like, so it's kind of it's all that stuff too, and that goes for any team also, or anybody, but staying focused on kind of like that process and executing on their current moment is kind of what their main focus is.
Yeah, I think that's going to be important because they've gotten through a pretty tough stretch of the schedule, right? We talked about the 3 ranked teams. Although they lost to Miami, they bounced back pretty well. Then they faced a conference opponent in North Texas, and they made that game look like North Texas wasn't even close to the same kind of strength as USF was. And then we saw North Texas end up beating UTSA pretty badly. So it shows just how good USF is that they're beating some of these other teams as easily as they are. And then this past week, they beat Florida Atlantic. I talked to Robbie a little bit about it. They beat them 48-13. And you were in attendance for that game as well. Can you just speak to what you saw? Like what kind of impressed you and what were your takeaways from the team?
Yeah, I mean, I thought they started out strong. They got a little shaky kind of at the end of the second quarter, but they really started to pull away after halftime.
Yeah.
We saw that the ball security was much more improved in this game compared to Charlotte and North Texas. Compared to during those games, I thought that Byram had a good game. I thought that Mac had a really good game. And that the secondary held up very well against FAU's offense. Yeah. And I've been impressed with this defense since the Boise game. I think they keep getting, better and better every time.
Yeah, and for everybody listening, I like to say this. Mackenzie was one of the first people to kind of shout out Mac Harris at the beginning of this year as a bounce back candidate on the defense, and he's looked fantastic. He actually he had 7 tackles and 1.5 sacks in the game, which is great, and he ended up being the defensive player of the week for the American Conference. I think you're completely right about Byram. I mean, he had over 100 yards rushing, which is insane, 256 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. And for a guy who's had some interception issues, he didn't throw any interceptions in that game either, which is something that Florida Atlantic has actually had to work on because, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think they have an interception yet this season. So they did kind of shut the lid on any potential, I guess we'll say, rivalry talk by kind of closing the door in that fashion, even though FAU was able to keep it close. Now, they do have another big test this upcoming week. They do face the Memphis Tigers. Our own Brendan Pockris will actually be there. He's not, and by the way, he is not on this show tonight because he is actually at FIU watching the Kennesaw State game live at Pitbull Stadium for their Vice Night game, which I think is a great thing. But anyway, USF travels to Memphis to take on a Memphis team that just got upset by UAB after they fired Trent Dilfer. Were you surprised that they lost that game, honestly?
Yeah, we got to watch the end of it before the USF game started, and I remember I went to Brandon because I saw the score and I was like, what did I miss here? Like, what did we like? And we were just kind of watching it like.
Yeah, surprised. Like, how do you? I don't. not to take anything away from UAB, but for a team that was Memphis was getting talked about for having like a potential playoff spot, playing in the American Conference Championship game, which technically can still happen. But seeing a hiccup that bad without the head coach, and I'm pretty sure the starting quarterback was out too, if I'm not mistaken, to see that happen was insane. But South Florida does have to travel there, and it could be a potentially tough environment. Is there anything specifically that you're looking to see as South Florida takes on another big test in the American Conference?
Yeah, I mean, I think Memphis is unique because we know that they're a very good team. But the defense, USF's defense, is preparing for potentially 3 different quarterbacks. We don't know who's going to start. Memphis's rushing attack is explosive. They have a really talented wide receiver core. These guys have like Madden numbers between like 400 and 500 yards, those leaders. They have a really athletic O-line. Their defense is solid. I mean, I think the main thing I'm kind of curious about in terms of how they stack up is like, how is Memphis gonna be coming off of their loss to UAB? Are they kind of be like seeking for vengeance, so to speak, or are they going to be like a little shaken up from that?
Right. So I'm curious to see that too, because that's the thing. I mean, I talked about it with Robbie before you came on. Some teams will, once they have a bad loss like that, they'll just start burying themselves and their own self-pitying, kind of losing a quarterback definitely doesn't help that. So at least South Florida does have a little bit of an edge there. But it's still, I mean, hey, trying to prepare for 3 different quarterbacks is no easy task. Now, I ask you this every time you're on the show, and I'm going to end it once again. Who do you think ends up winning the contest between Memphis and South Florida this week?
I think this one's going to be really tough. I think it'll be close. I know the split right now is like 50-50.
Yeah, it was like 49.9 for USF and 50. Yeah, is tight.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have picked, in terms of USF schedule, for them to either lose Memphis or to lose to Navy.
Right.
I think in my original schedule preview, I said that they would lose to both. Times have changed, so I don't know. I think that this one's also a little bittersweet because the last time, when Memphis came here last year was right after the hurricane when they played in Orlando.
Right.
That was, a really emotional week for them. So I think that.
It's okay. It's okay. If anything, you've already said enough for USF fans to hate you, saying Golish could potentially leave. If you think they're gonna lose, I don't know if it would hurt them anymore.
I'll give them this one by like slim, very slim, like over the odds,
like 1 to 3 point win.
1, yeah.
1 to 3. Okay, I can take that.
I'm gonna flip that projection. I'm gonna go Memphis 49% and.
Okay, hey, I'm not mad at that. It's a close game. There's a reason why it's like that. And I mean, dang, if Memphis just beat UAB, it could have been a crazy game, potentially, college game day, all that sort of stuff. So that stinks. But if USF can pull it out, it'll make it even worse for Memphis going forward. And I mean, I don't say that's what we want to see happen, but I know South Florida fans definitely want to see that happen so that they could potentially get that playoff bid because there's only going to be one locked in bid for the Group of 5, G6, whatever you call it now, teams. Now, Mackenzie, before I let you go, can you just let everybody know where they can find you out on your social media?
Yeah, all of my USF coverage is on my Twitter or my X at Mackenzie Neglia, so it's just my first and last name.
Awesome. Mackenzie, as always, I truly appreciate you coming on and taking the time out to be on here.
Of course. Appreciate you.
Yep. That is Mackenzie Neglia. She works just for the League Winners, and you can find her with South Florida Bulls coverage on X/Twitter. It is at Mackenzie Neglia, first and last name. It is MacKenzie, and Neglia is Neglia. So make sure you guys are checking her out. She does a fantastic USF Bulls coverage into the season. And hey, man, how about those USF Bulls? It's been shocking. I know a lot of people have been surprised to see how well that they've performed this season. I can tell you not too many people expected them to have the season they have before. Big players have come out, Byron Brown, Mac Harris, guys who have had injuries have really stepped up in what could potentially be their final year in college football. Now, tonight's game, actually, we do have some games going on tonight. That is the FIU Panthers are taking on Kennesaw State. And right now, Kennesaw State is actually, putting a little bit of work on the Panthers. It is still in the second quarter, just under 2 minutes to go. Kennesaw State has the ball at their own 15-yard line. They are beating FIU currently 24-14. Amari Odom has looked pretty good, 8 of 12, 211 yards, 1 touchdown, some big plays right there. Gabriel Bernard, 4 receptions for 94 yards. On the other side of things, Kejon Owens has continued to look great as a rusher, 19 carries for 93 yards and a touchdown. He did have a 15-yard scamper where he was untouched. For the passing side for Florida International, we have Kewan Jenkins, who is 10 of 14, 106 yards. Really nothing from him on the rushing side, which is what he's mostly, he's known more as a dual threat kind of back. But he has been connecting with McGuire Anderson, 4 receptions for 43 yards right now. Anthony Carey also has 3 rushes for 22 yards. And Saquon Jean-Pierre has 2 rushes for 14. So the rushing attack is working well for Florida Atlantic. It's just the problem is when you start getting down in points, you have to rely on that passing attack. Can Kejuan Owens be that kind of guy to have the team play from behind? It's tough to say right now, but they've had some issues doing it, especially against, Delaware is a great example where they were down and had to rely on him, and he did not perform well. Speaking of Delaware, that is another team we cover, believe it or not, and they actually have a game tomorrow as well. Shout out to the Conference USA for making things a little bit weird with this midweek football games. It is actually doing great for them. Some of these guys are getting great ratings on television. And that is kind of what is important for a lot of these programs when they renew television deals in the future. It's all about these ratings and standalones. Now, before we start hitting on Delaware, and after Delaware, we'll start talking some P4. But before we get there, if you're watching the show, please making sure you're liking the video. If you're watching it on YouTube, while you're at it, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We have player interviews. We have a lot of stuff that is going on the channel as well. If you're watching on X or Facebook, please make sure you're liking, retweeting. That goes a long way as well. If you're watching on Facebook, we do post content from our Instagram to that channel as well. You can also find the Instagram at The League Winners. It is spelled how it sounds. Now, as we preview this Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders game, they travel to the Delaware Fighting Blue Hens, and Delaware is having their blackout game. Oh my Lord. I don't know if you guys have seen these uniforms that Delaware is going to be wearing in this contest, but man, they're pretty. I'm going to see if I can pull them up real quick while we're talking about this contest, because they just look sick, man. They truly do. But entering this contest, Delaware, they got to do a little bit better. They had a tough loss last week against Jack State. Cam Cook, one of the greatest running backs in college football right now. However, some miscues, some turnovers from Delaware really hindered them from winning that game. Nick Minicucci didn't really start to set off and start playing well until the game was already kind of out of reach. And I'm going to see if I can bring on this share screen right now and see if we can see this real quick. Yeah, look at these uniforms, man. These uniforms are so awesome. Shout out to the people over at Delaware for setting these uniforms up, because come on, those look so clean. We're just going to go down here and look at some of these guys. They just look sick. It's a night out game tomorrow. The game starts at, I believe it's 7:30 against Middle Tennessee. Middle Tennessee hasn't looked so great this season. They're 1-5, but Jaquil Middlebrook, their running back, one of the best running backs in college football right now, yards after contact per attempt, and he is the nation's best pass blocking running back. So if Delaware wants to win this game, they're going to have to make him non-existent. And I mean, dude, these uniforms are just so awesome. But for Delaware themselves, the interior line is going to be very important in this game. Offensive side of the ball, it's going to be how Nick Minicucci ends up performing. He has been, hit or miss so far this season. He's had some great passing numbers, but he's also relied on his legs, and at times it's gotten him in a little bit of trouble. He's kind of a gunslinger. So it'll be very interesting to see that matchup. And we should have somebody at that event, hopefully doing content there. I'm very excited to see how that ends up going. But that actually ends the semi-long portion of our Group of 5 segment, and that gets us right back into P4, baby. I'm not taking any breaks here, but if you're watching the show, make sure you are liking. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. It's completely free. Feel free to share the video. It is a live show, so if you do comments, we will get to you. As you saw, we got the Jack's comment before talking Alex Golish to Auburn, which is pretty interesting in and of itself. And if you're watching on Twitter/Facebook, make sure you're liking the video. Make sure you're retweeting it. Everything is fine and helps us. But I do have my next guest actually in the green room. He covers Cal football for the League Winners. You love him, you know him. It is my man Cody Henderson. Cody, thank you so much for coming on, brother.
Yeah, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. It's I actually forgot today was Tuesday until about 5 o'clock, and I was like, oh my Lord, okay, there's a show I have to do. There's football going on, and it's very interesting. And for your Cal Golden Bears, I'm pretty sure they play. Is it another Friday night game they're playing? At Virginia Tech. Yeah, I'm actually going to be at that game. I should have known that. That's kind of bad. But before we get to Virginia Tech, I do want to highlight their last matchup, which was against the UNC Tar Heels, and in a game that I was pretty surprised how the course of the game went. In your game preview, you talked about how Kedu Luawe was going to have to be a force in that game. He ended up being a force in that game, really like hit sticking some guys. Very great to see. But can you just, talk to me about what your thoughts were watching that game?
Yeah, I mean, it was ugly, but they got the job done. And I know you can attest to this, but last year I feel like the team was better than this year's team, but they lost a lot of games that they shouldn't have.
Yes.
And now they're just kind of finding ways to win. And I think that's really an important stepping stone for this program, because you talk about all the guys that left the program. I mean, a lot of top stars. You see how Fernando Mendoza is playing. A lot of people were writing Cal off. And I'm not saying that they're beating all these, crazy teams. I mean, their schedule has been obviously very favorable to them, but at the same time, they played 4 teams that are coming off their bye. That's not easy.
Right.
Now they're traveling across the country, on a Friday night to play Virginia Tech. Not an easy place to play. But I'm impressed with the way that they're finding ways to win. I mean, truly, it hasn't been pretty. They don't look that particularly well. But it's all about winning games, right? It doesn't matter how you do it. So you got to take it, especially if you're a Cal fan. You're absolutely taking this right now.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, you mentioned it. Last year, there was how many times did they lose a game by a point, literally?
Yeah.
And just backbreaking. Even half the time they were up. Half the time they were up in those games, up until halftime. So it was some crushing losses. And you got to think, you kind of hit on a little bit. They had a lot of star power there, and they were still losing those games. I won't say the roster they have now isn't as talented, but it's a whole different group of guys, a lot of younger guys really stepping up. And Cal's, like you said, Cal's finding a way to win. And a lot of that, I think, I don't know if it's right to give Ron Rivera that much credit, but it seems like, a lot of it's, between Ron Rivera on the football field and the marketing, everyone's buying in, including the players now. Can you just talk about what Rivera's impact has been on the Cal football program?
Yeah, I think the biggest positive is that you can see him. And I don't know if that makes sense, but you see him, he's out there, he's in the city, he's meeting fans, he's meeting, people in the community. He's trying to get people. I mean, if you think about it, the East Bay has lost the Raiders, it's lost the A's. So there's this huge, gap there. And there's, 2 million people that live on that side of the bridge. So there's a big opportunity for Cal to kind of come in and grab some of those people that are, maybe a little bit disheartened, based on what has gone down in the East Bay in the past couple of years. And they're but they still love sports, right? So I think you're seeing him going out there, showing face, getting people involved. That he's handing out tickets left and right to, members of the community. And then you kind of just see like the marketing perspective, right? I mean, they try the Black Bear Zone, which is, a knockoff of the black hole that the Raiders had. You see them trying all these new introduction things and post-game things. And I think a lot of people have been really wanting this out of the program, and they just were not getting it from the previous admin team. But now that they do, and this is going to, this isn't just going to change overnight, right? But especially considering how much the previous admin neglected the football program. But now you're starting to see them kind of go out there and engage with the community again and get people actually excited for the team. And I think that's a great first start. So I that is the immediate impact that I think you're seeing.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that you can like see him, because I know that sounds weird, but I mean, we saw him with the Calgorithm book, like taking pictures with it and just out there and like talking to fans. He's willing to talk to the media. He doesn't shy away from any of that stuff. I know being a coach and being at the NFL level definitely helps with his media literacy and exposure and all of that. But he's also doing other stuff too. Like, I'm pretty sure they reintroduced the band in the tunnel, if I'm not mistaken. And like last year, they didn't have that last year. And it's something that they've had in previous years. So bringing back that kind of tradition is helpful and, building the narrative of that program. And then not only that, they have the cool, like decals on the back of the helmet of, what is it? The Nobel Prizes or something insane. And it's like 62 or something now. So it just shows like how big of a university Cal, really is. And I know that UNC game was a little bit of like a stinker, I guess, on their eyes, but they still ended up winning the game. I mean, shout out Brent Austin on that punch out, man. That is literally a game-saving play at the most important time, and he just nailed it after having some issues earlier in the game too, which is ironic. He really stepped up. But now going into this game, obviously, Virginia Tech fired their head coach midway through the season. They've been struggling a bit, 22-5, lost 22-35 to Georgia Tech in their most recent contest. Now Cal comes in, has to fly across the nation, basically to Blacksburg. How do you think this contest is going to go? Is there anything that concerns you? Is there anything that you're looking for? I'm jealous of everyone that gets to attend this game. I'm really looking forward to that introduction that the Hokies have got going on over there. I mean, Enter Sandman is one of the coolest introductions in all of sports. I believe Virginia Tech is actually favored in this game, which is I don't know. I mean, it's tough, right? Because you think that the cross country travel is like really difficult, but teams don't have any problems flying into Berkeley to beating the Bears, coming across the country. Right. Do I think Cal can win this game? Yeah, absolutely. I do think it'll be a low-scoring game. I think Virginia Tech is probably, they're all playing for new jobs, right? And I think what you're kind of seeing now is like, and this has always been the case, really, but really, these guys are trying to put tape out there because, yeah, they know that their season is over. The Hokies players do, but at the same time, they put a couple good games together towards the end of the season. I mean, the transfer portal is couple months away, right? So they're going to be trying. They've got some great players. I know they've got some good running backs. They've got a good wide receiver. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I think the turnover battle is probably going to be the difference, to be honest with you. If JKS can, limit the turnovers, no turnovers would be great, but they're going to have to, not give the Hokies good field position, especially when they're at home and they've got the crowd behind them. That's going to be tough. Yeah, it's actually, I had to check. Virginia Tech is 4.5-point favorites over Cal, which is very interesting. I think that's a little bit larger of a gap than I would like to put them at. Maybe because of home field advantage, I'd go like 1.5, but 4.5 seems kind of insane, considering that they have been struggling. And Cal is a good, whether people want to admit it yet or not, they did have that, under average or below average performance against UNC, but they still won the game. They're still 5-2. They're still a good, good program. One win away from a bowl game. Now, Cody, do you think Cal ends up winning this game dominantly before I get you out of here, or do you think it's more of like because they have to fly and all of the excess stuff that kind of goes on? Do you think that Cal's going to win? And Shane's actually in the green rooms, right? We're smashing the Cal spread bets. So yeah, I would tend to agree with that. Cody, what are your thoughts?
So I think Cal wins 21-18. I think it's going to be another tight game. A team that they should probably absolutely blow out, but at the same time, I don't know, just something new every week. So, and I know that they're battling injuries right now, but I think it'll come down to another one possession game towards the end.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. You had your last prediction right in your preview for the game against UNC. You pretty much hit that nail on the head. And now it's another game where it'll be interesting to see how Cal unfolds going forward. Now, before I let you out here, Cody, can you just let everybody know where they can find all your content at and your social media?
Yeah, so you can follow me on X at CodyTLW. Usually try to do this every Tuesday if my wife doesn't force me to go grocery shopping. And you can find me on the Bear Vengers. That's usually like every Wednesday or Thursday. I do that with some other Cal guys, but I've got all my league winners articles on X, and I've got 99% of my content on there too. So that's where you can find me.
Cody, I appreciate you so much for coming on, brother. And I'll try to send you some good shots over in Blacksburg.
Oh yeah, thanks, Thomas.
Yeah, you take care, man. That is Cody Henderson. Love that man. He does a great job. If you guys aren't following Cody, make sure you are following him on X/Twitter at CodyTLW. He does all Cal football stuff. He's a correspondent for the West Coast, so he also helps us with UCLA and UNLV for our reporters out there. I do have my next guest in the green room right now. We're about to talk some Auburn football, potential Hughes Freeze destinations or consequences, and I'm gonna bring him in right now. My man Shane Barrett. Shane, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
I have to. What is with Auburn, man?
I don't know. I think this is my final theory that all of the missed calls and all of the bad luck and bad juju is just Hugh Freeze paying for his sins of his past. Like, that's gotta be it. Like, the SEC, the football gods, I don't know. Like, they're all just like, Hugh screwed up at Ole Miss. He had cancer, redeemed himself somewhat at Liberty, but because he had cancer, he didn't immediately pay for his sins. So now he's going to pay for him, and Auburn fans have to suffer.
It's so insane because the defense has played lights out. I mean,
the defense is a top 5 defense in the country.
The only game they've lost by 10 points with is Georgia, and they only gave up 20 points to Georgia.
And if Gunnar Stockton does the right football thing, they'd lose by 3 and cover.
Yeah. So it's like it's been insane. I mean, the Missouri loss was only a 6-point loss in overtime, which against a ranked Missouri team. These are, by the way, folks, these like less than 10-point losses aren't just against your average little P4 teams.
They're against top 15
teams. They're against ranked football teams. We'll just go through. So the first one was Oklahoma 24-17, ranked. Then we have Texas A&M 16-10 to Texas A&M. Then Georgia 20-10. And then Missouri 23-17. I mean, as a fan, you have to be like, okay, great, my team can play with the best of them, but
look, if I hear Hugh Freeze say we're so close one more time in a press conference, though, I'm gonna rip what little hair I have left at them, put it into a cement ball, and throw it at his face. Like, yes, we're close. You're in year 3. We have the talent clearly to compete with these teams. Figure out how to coach them and put them in the right positions to win, because it's ridiculous at this point.
Yeah, and so I talked to you a little bit about this. Is now they're talking about potentially, I don't know if it's benching Jackson Arnold per se, but splitting first team reps with Arnold. Yeah. Can you just give me your thoughts about that? If it's the right decision and who they're splitting reps with, the right person to be splitting reps with.
So, according to Hugh Freeze's press conference, I think on Monday, the plan had been to redshirt Ashton Daniels and have him come in and essentially compete with Deuce Knight next year. That's been what has been rumored to be the plan all season this season. When Freeze was asked about it at his press conference on Monday, they said, no, that's no longer the plan. We are going to do what's best for the team and try to win out for the rest of the season, which would mean Auburn goes 8-4, which is what I said in our preview article for the season. Hugh Freeze has to win 8 games to keep his job or win the right 7. And right now he's not on pace to do either. Because I don't know, like Missouri was a winnable game. I mean, shoot, you just talked about the last 4 games. They were all winnable.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, that's the one part of me that's like, I don't want to fire a coach, especially from where we came from with the end of the Malzahn tenure and then Harsin and what Hugh Freeze inherited. Like, I don't want to be that quick to pull the trigger on firing him. But at the same time, like we've talked about over and over again, they have the talent now. His 2.5 recruiting classes that he's gotten have been incredible.
Yeah. So
they've got to figure out a way to win this game. And so to get back to your question, I don't know who the right answer is at quarterback right now. I don't think it's Jackson Arnold. The one thing that I'll give Jackson Arnold credit versus like Peyton Thorne, like we've talked about last year, is Jackson has seemed to improve, or at least like work on the things that we've said, hey, you need to work on. Like in the Georgia game, he overthrew Eric Singleton because he threw a freaking laser. And then, oh my God, he threw a perfect ball to Cam Coleman. And Coleman dropped it. It was just like, you've got to be kidding me. And then he finally threw his first interception. I was like, okay, we got the monkey off our back. Maybe he'll know to like just let it loose and whatnot. And it was a weird, I don't want to say fluky, but it was just a weird interception. Like something just seemed off about that play. It didn't seem like I don't think he forced it necessarily, but something was just off in the timing of that play. But I was like, okay, he finally got the monkey off his back. You can't bench him now. You got to let him at least play one more series, because we've said it, he doesn't throw interceptions because he doesn't take the risk. And he finally threw one, and it's like, okay, let's let him see if he can play out of it. So, and it just seems like when we get in late game situations, his confidence and decision-making just crumble.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, I don't think Arnold is the right choice going forward. That brings us back to Ashton Daniels, who they're rumored to be starting. He was 3 or 4 year. I don't know how much he started at Stanford, but he has plenty of game experience from Stanford. Stanford. Sorry, I'm from Birmingham, and if I said Stanford or whatnot, my Samford friends would be mad at me. Sam, not Stan. But Ashton Daniels, I think offers similar skills to Jackson, and so the question is going to be: is his decision-making process better than what Jackson is? I hope so, because he's got 2 years of experience on Jackson from a starting standpoint. Obviously that was ACC and maybe Pac-12. I can't remember when that actually dissolved, but it's not the same level of the SEC, but it's still starting in major college football, right? And so if Daniels can offer us more upside or even the ability to close games, I'm fine with that. But you and I texted, I don't know why we're not going with Deuce Knight. Like at this point, like he's played in one game. I think roster retention, like if Hugh Freeze gets fired, which I think is where we're trending towards, roster retention is going to be huge. And I think the way to keep more people on this team is to let Deuce Knight play. It probably helps Deuce Knight stay. It maybe helps convince Cam Coleman to stay. It helps guys like Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons, Bryce Kane be convinced to stay. Thinking about recruiting, Jace Matthews is a wide receiver coming in from Mississippi. Deuce Knight is from Mississippi. If he stays, then I think Jace Matthews has a better chance to stay committed to Auburn. And so that's just the coaches. This is going to be a little hot take, I guess. I don't know if they know more than us at this point, because the results aren't there. Like, so all of the fans, from what I've heard, would rather it be Deuce, I think, than Ashton. And it's no offense to Ashton. It's just, I think we want to see more of a glimpse into the future where Ashton has a limited time frame with us, especially like if we hold him to the red shirt and keep him redshirted, he can come back next year. If he doesn't, he's done.
Right. I think that's important because there's a reason why he didn't win the job, right? When they brought him in, there's a reason why he's specifically the backup. You know, there's always a reason why certain guys are a backup, and a lot of teams don't give the young guy the run that he might necessarily have. So I don't. Do you think that's like Freeze trying to save his job? Perhaps.
I think so, but I also, like, you and I talked about it with Hank Brown last year.
Yeah.
Like, Hank Brown came in against New Mexico, I think. I can't remember. It was New Mexico or Alabama State, one of the two, and played really freaking good. And obviously the competition level is not great. And then he comes in against Arkansas and he throws 3 picks in the first half. And for some godforsaken reason, Hugh's like, okay, bye, and goes back to Peyton Thorne and never gave Hank Brown another shot. And I thought the reason for Hank Brown's turnovers in that game and in the rest of the season when he did play were just quick little decisions that, like, you can coach that out of someone. Right. So if Freeze doesn't want to coach that out of the player, why are you coaching? And why are we not looking towards the future more? Like, I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad that you said Arkansas, though, because that's actually a great segue.
You're welcome.
Into what we have next. And that, I mean, and the irony is that Arkansas has kind of been like Auburn light in that they're losing some of these games by extremely close number. I mean, so they lost to Texas A&M last week, or, a couple days ago, by 3 points, 45-42. Lost to Tennessee by 3 points. Notre Dame really kicked their teeth in, but then they lost to Memphis by a point, a game that they should have won that game. I still can't believe they lost that game. And then they lost to Ole Miss by 6 points. So we're seeing two teams that have just a really hard time, closing out games. It's like watching yourself in a mirror, man. But
I can't remember if I heard it on a podcast or if I read it on Twitter, but it was basically like someone is going to have to win the game of we've almost won every game this season bowl in Auburn versus Arkansas. And then I think it was Zach Blackerby on Locked On Auburn said, yeah, my wife just said something I didn't hear because of my headphones, but
we almost win.
Yeah, they almost always almost win bowl is what Auburn versus Arkansas.
That's
is.
A very succinct.
But I think it was Zach Blackerby on Locked On Auburn a week or two ago mentioned how since Pittman's firing, Arkansas's offense and in general as a team, they've looked a lot better, and they're gonna knock somebody off and they're gonna screw somebody's schedule up. And we were hoping it was gonna be Texas A&M. But he was like, please don't let it be Auburn. And I just have this horrible feeling that it's going to be Auburn. Like, I just think they're going to figure it out and put it all together, and Auburn's going to figure out a way to keep losing.
Yeah. Man, it's interesting that you say that because, Arkansas has had these issues and they ended up firing their coach. Yeah. Auburn is like right there. So I got to ask, if you at the end of the day, you think Auburn might end up coming up short, do you think that this is going to be what is the axe in Hugh Freeze's tenure at Auburn if he loses this game?
If they lose this game, yes. Arkansas is seen as the bottom of the SEC. And if Auburn loses this game, I would not be surprised if Hugh Freeze is not the coach next week.
Man, that would be very, very interesting. I was going to ask you how you thought it played out, but man, I was surprised that you said that Arkansas might pull out a victory on that.
I want to say, like, I think the score prediction I'm going to go with is 31-28 Arkansas. I don't know why. That's just what it like. But again, if Auburn scores 28 points, I'll be happy. But at the same time, like,
yeah, they haven't. I don't even know if they put that up in the past 5 weeks.
They have not scored that since the South Alabama game. if I remember correctly. Hold on,
think you're
let me
correct.
look real quick.
Yeah, I'm about to look too. Yeah, South Alabama. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4. That's
Yeah.
5. That's over a month ago now. They've scored
Yep.
31 there. That's not great, man. And considering it's just so weird that this is the same team we're talking about that put up 38 on Baylor. Is having issues of putting up points. I mean,
well, since the Baylor game, they've not run that same offense where they were extremely run heavy. Like in that game, Jeremiah Cobb and Damari Alston both had 15 or 16 carries. I can't remember what it was. They both had the same amount. And Jackson Arnold, let me go look because I don't remember. But Jackson Arnold ran all over them. He also had 16 carries.
Right.
For 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. And since then, I don't know if he's had over a 100-yard game. And I know sacks are count against you in college football for rushing yards, but still, even I don't know if he's had 50 in a game. Now I got to go look.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at some of this, and it's kind of interesting that they ran so heavily in that week 1 game and had a lot of success against a good team, and then they just threw it away. Yeah, they've completely thrown it away. I'm looking, and I mean, there's even games where Cobb has gotten like no touches, and Damari's gotten like no touches. It's very interesting, and I know they have. Do you know if Darrell Robinson's been hurt or if is he just
Yeah, so it was after what game was that? Was that Ball State? It was Ball State or excuse me, South Alabama. I think it was Ball State. He woke up on that Sunday and had basically a blood clot in his leg that pulled up significantly, and they had to rush him to Birmingham and basically take out a deep chunk of his leg. So he's been recovering from that since then.
Oh, I did not know it was that serious. Okay, that is crazy. He was really good runner at UConn. I got to see him. So that's
well, and that's another thing of like, Hugh, what are you doing as head coach? Is he? It was last week after Damari was kicked off the team. I'm just not going to paraphrase that.
Right.
He was asked like, what's the status of Darrell Robinson? And his answer was, I don't know. I should get with medical on that. And it's like, bro, what?
Whoa, that's a little.
And then it was the week before that somebody asked him about Horatio Fields. And he was like, I think it's 6 to 8 weeks till he returns, but I don't really know what that means, if that's when he can come back to practice or when he's going to be back fully playing. And it's just like, dude, you're the head coach.
Yeah.
You're supposed to know this stuff.
That's not good, man. That's actually really bad. I can't. That's so disappointing, especially from somebody like Freeze, who's like, it's so uncharacteristic of like how he's built everything up to just now plateau. And now it's like, okay, you build yourself up, you plateaued, and now you're just going to start sinking down after having probably the best recruiting class he's had up to this point. And even the future ones look great. And if they keep losing, who knows how that ends up turning out, because that could spin on its head real quick. But Shane, before I let you out of here, brother, can you just let everybody know where they can find you out on your social media and everything you got going on?
Yeah, follow me on X at FFShaneB. All of my league winners articles will be there. My posts about Poly's playoff, my charity tournament will be there, which we are still raising money for the Alzheimer's Association till the end of the year. I tweeted out the link on Sunday. The walk for Birmingham was this past Sunday. So that was a good time. I got my ass worked out. The park that we were doing the walk in is in Vestavia Hills, Alabama. And so it was hilly, and I was pushing the stroller with my 2 youngest kids in it that weighed in total about 50 pounds up this hill twice. I got worked out.
There you go.
But
running the track, running the weight sled.
But yeah, follow me on X at FFShaneB. And I'll pull a Scott Fish quote. If you can do good, then do good. No matter how big your platform is, you can make an impact.
I love that. I think that's great. Great way to sign off, brother. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I truly appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man. Y'all have a good night.
Yeah, you too. That is Shane Barry. You can find him at FFShaneB on X/Twitter for Auburn and fantasy football content. Stran's a great guy. Make sure you guys are keeping tabs with him. We actually have no Dan Tortora today. The man turns 40 years old today. Shout out to Dan Tortora. Happy birthday, brother. Truly appreciate you. Miss you not being on the show. But hey, man, enjoy the time. Enjoy time with your family because you only get that once. It's family is truly very important. Now, before I get off, I do have another segment about Syracuse real quick because I do cover them live on site. But before we get there, if you're watching this video on YouTube, make sure you're liking. Feel free to comment. This is a live show. I will get the comments no matter what. And even after the show ends, you can still comment, and I will get to you within 24 to 48 hours after the show ends. If you miss all this live episode stuff, and if you want to listen to it again through an audio, you can find that on the very next day on Spotify at the League Winners on Spotify. Now, if you're watching on X/Twitter or Facebook, make sure you're liking, commenting, and just sharing it. It helps out the site and everything else. I do truly appreciate it. Now, I do want to talk about Syracuse football, which is normally what I do with my friend Dan Tortora, who comes on. As I said, happy birthday, Dan. He's unavailable. But they did lose 30-13 to the Pitt Panthers. And while Pitt did score 30 points, it's not because the defense played poorly. In fact, the defense played spectacularly. In my preview, I said that this team needed to convert pressures into sacks, and they truly did that. Kevin Jobity had 2.5, technically 3, I guess they ended up giving him on the game. David Ruiz played a big part of that as well, as did, the rest of the interior guys. The team truly played great overall. The secondary was fantastic. Barely saw Demetrius Samuel's name called, and that's for good reason. Deuce Chestnut in the secondary looked fantastic as well all day. Just really just getting to the ball carriers, forcing incompletions. Mason Heinschel didn't look fantastic. He had one, I think it was a 30-something yard run, 36-yard touchdown run on their first drive. After that, they really struggled. He ended up going 13 of 24, 143 yards, and an interception. Didn't even surpass 150 yards. But the big turning point in the game was actually at the end of the second quarter, believe it or not. It was a punt return touchdown from Pitt. And that ended up really changing the whole, concept of the game after that. Pitt ended up, instead of going 10-7 up at halftime, Pitt was up 17-7 at halftime. And then they were also the first to score points in the third quarter. Ended up being 27, real deep for Pitt. Ricky Collins had some struggles. He threw 3 interceptions on the game. 2 of them, it looked like he was trying to fit a spot into zone and just didn't have the arm strength to do so, or wasn't able to read the zone coverage. More on that in a little bit. He did throw another interception that bounced off the arms of Derigo. Gill probably should have caught that, but there was defensive pass interference that was not called in that game. Rushing the ball, Syracuse had some trouble, and that probably did not help Ricky Collins. Yasin Willis, who's been great this year, had 14 carries for 21 yards. Pitt's defense played great as usual. Kyle Lewis, actually keep an eye on Kyle Lewis, who was hurt with a neck injury. Right now, I don't know if he has been updated, but basically he was on the ground for an extended period of time. And at the moment, it says there's no update yet. I'll have to keep tabs on that and report back. But he went down with an injury, did not go to the sideline, went straight to the locker room. It looked like he was knocked out on the field during the play itself. So prayers up for Kyle Lewis. He's a great player in and of his own right. And hopefully it's nothing too serious that hinders his football career. Now, Pitt's defense did play fantastic in the game. Stymied Ricky Collins, and Ricky Collins, as much as it's hard to try to say a player needs to be benched, this is probably the time. He was benched at some point in this game for freshman Luke Carney. But head coach Fran Brown said after the game that Carney does not know enough of the offense to really make too much of a difference for the team, at least not yet. So Ricky Collins right now is still the starter, but there was an interesting moment in the post game from last week's loss to Pitt that I did ask head coach Fran Brown about, and I'm going to put it up right here because I asked him if he was splitting the field for Ricky Collins, giving him split field reads to make it easier for him to play the position. And we got a very, very interesting comment from head coach Fran Brown. Splitting the reads into a split field read for Ricky and giving him less things to worry about post snap.
Who said we're not doing that?
I guess that answers that question.
I'm just saying, like, who says that we're not doing that, right? We try to make the game as simple as possible. The object of the game is for us to win. Trying to slow it down, trying to do different things of that nature, right? So I think that Ricky will keep getting better, and we're going to keep doing what we need to do to put him in position to be successful as much as possible, and then want to do the same thing for Luke. Just want to do the same thing for all those guys, right?
Now, that was head coach Fran Brown after that week 8 loss to the Pitt Panthers, talking about Ricky Collins, saying that he has been splitting the field. Now, I want people to keep in mind, Ricky Collins at LSU, he was a scout team quarterback. He was not on the second string. He was not playing with the backups. He was playing with the scout team, meaning that he did not receive nearly any live reps, and his stats really back that up, honestly. So Syracuse was his first stop. This was, his first couple starts in his young career. Now he does have the offensive playmakers to help him. However, he's not seeing the field correctly. There's a growth spurt there. I really think, and I truly do believe this, that he was kind of relieved when Steve Angeli was brought in, because it gave him time to learn as that backup quarterback, no longer a scout team guy, seeing live stuff in practice, slowing the game down for him so he can perform better in these game contests. Now, instead, it hasn't worked out for him. He's had trouble reading zones. He has a really hard time reading zones. He sees certain one-on-one matchups on the outside and doesn't recognize that it's actually his own coverage and the safety is going to pull on that side. He doesn't look them away good enough to be able to hit those one-on-one matchups. Not yet. Now, is it coachable? Potentially. We'll have to find out and see how that goes. But for now, one has to wonder, is starting Ricky Collins going forward the right thing for Syracuse? Who knows? They have to win 3 more games to get to a bowl game. And then this week they do face the undefeated Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, and Georgia Tech has been on a roll. This game is on the road, so it'll be interesting to see if Ricky performs, because if not, the seats are just going to get hotter, and Carney is right behind him. Whether or not the freshman's ready to be put in that spot remains to be seen. Before I get out of here, I do just want to give an update on that Kennesaw State game. Into quarter 3, it is still 24-14. Kennesaw State Owls are up over the Panthers at Vice Night, and it is actually Florida Atlantic has the ball. They are in the red zone. Whether or not they'll get points out of that, who knows? But Conference USA seems to be a wide open conference in the group of 5. Whoever comes out on top, the winner of this game could play a factor in who plays in the conference championship game. Now, this has been going on for a long time. Normally we run till 10, but without friend Dan Tortora and a couple other guests, we're going to shorten it a little bit. So I do apologize. It is a long week. I will actually be traveling to Virginia Tech for that Cal Virginia Tech game, and I will also be at Maryland Annapolis for the Navy taking on Florida Atlantic at home. That'll be Friday and Saturday this week. Don't forget to check out the Blackout game for the Delaware Blue Hens on Wednesday tomorrow as to take on the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders. And if you're listening to this show, please making sure liking. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Please share the show. If you're watching on X/Twitter or Facebook, like, share, comment. Make sure you guys are commenting. I'll always get to the comments even after this show ends, which it's about to do. I'll get back to them within 24 to 48 hours. I do truly appreciate everyone taking out the time to listen to the show. And Dan Tortora, brother, happy birthday, my friend. Do appreciate you. Rest in peace, Felix. We love you. And you all take care. This is Thomas Christopher. Until next time.